Hello. I chose Linda Darling Hammond as my scholar to study. She's one of my seminal authors for my research study on attaining and retaining high quality teachers in schools with high population of low income black students. Linda Darling Hammond's publications are over 300, and most of her research relates to teacher education, retention, and professional development, which I believe is significant due to an instructor's impact on student achievement. I chose Dr. Linda Darling Hammond as my scholar because she's one of my seminal authors for my research on attaining and retaining high quality teachers in schools with high population of low income black students. Linda Darling Hammond's publications are over 300, and most of her research relates to teacher education, retention, and professional development. She began her career as a public school teacher in Camden, New Jersey High School. She received a doctorate in education with highest distinction from Temple University and a Bachelor of Arts from Yale University. She is the 2016 president of the American Education Research Association, AERA, and recipients of awards including Distinguished Contribution to Research, Lifetime Achievement, Research to Policy. She's also currently the Charles E. Dukerman Professor of Education Emeritus at Stanford University, where she founded the Stanford Center for Opportunity Policy in Education and served as a faculty sponsor. The key ideas and concepts that she addresses in her research include teacher education, school leadership development, school redesign, educational equity, instruction of diverse learners, educational policy. However, the majority of her research is on teaching and policy work focused on issues on school restructuring, teacher quality, and educational equity. This is one of her books, actually one of my favorites, The Flat World in Education. We will address it later on in the presentation, but she does delve into many things relating to teacher professional development. These are also two publications. The first one, Redesigning Schools, is one that she co-authored, and again, we will discuss this later in the presentation. Within it, she talks about multiculturalism that's needed in the school. She basically, along with the other co-authors, talk about what is an effective school and gives some descriptors for it. The next book is A License to Teach, very much in line to what she's known for, which is, again, talking about quality teaching, and this is one of her books. Over the many years of her profession, she's dedicated her time to improving public education. She worked strategically to change national educational policy. From 1994 to 2001, she was the executive director of the National Commission on Teacher and America's Future. During her tenure, she published the report, What Matters Most, Teaching for America's Future. This document was named one of the most influential reports affecting U.S. education during when it was published. Her scholarly work is not limited to contributions at Stanford University, but numerous publications. She also served as the leader of President Barack Obama's educational policy transition team. In 2006, scholar Darling Hammond was named one of the nation's 10 most influential persons affecting educational policy. I believe that as a scholar, not only should you have a lot of publications with research, but what are you doing to impact change? What are you doing to make a difference nationally? And I believe her work in policy is very outstanding. Scholar Darling Hammond's contribution to the field of multicultural education is apparent in her publication on teacher preparation, teacher quality, and school reform. Although she explicitly does not state or refers to herself as a scholar of multicultural education, she does mention it in her many publications. For instance, in the book previously posted in the presentation, The Flat World in Education, she explains that the achievement gap is a result of inaccessibility of resources and other obstacles included unequal access to quality teacher, low quality curriculum, and resegregation, which is certainly something that was stated in Sleater and Carmona's text. She also talks about multicultural education in her publication, 10 Features of Good Small Schools, Redesigning High School, which is the publication that was previously presented. And she talks about immigration and standardized curriculum. In it, she talks about the fact that teachers need to understand and be knowledgeable of immigrants and make sure that they create a supportive learning environment in their classroom. She also talks about standardized curriculum by saying that the problem with standardized teaching in that way is that children are not standardized, which certainly relates to Sleater and Carmona's text. The impact of Darlene Hammond is quite impressive. She is committed to improving public school education for all students. In 1988, Meek interviewed her about the research with Rand Corporation. She explicitly stated that she is studying teaching in classroom and what constructs and constraints it, and district and national policies on teacher education and teacher selection. In this interview, she talks about teacher professional development and preparation programs, but currently, in the most recent interview in 2017, she addresses the same thing. She talks about inequality in education, the achievement gap, and explicitly states the reason for it and what must be done. She encourages us to examine the way we structure education in society as a whole, because a lot of inequality is constructed outside of the school. Martin and Mulvin exclaims that Linda Darling Hammond's leadership and research on education policy, teacher quality, and school reform is the reason she is highly regarded by other scholars. As stated previously, she consistently focuses on teaching and learning, as I stated earlier, her first interview being in 1988, where she talks about teacher professional development, and in her most recent interview, she continues talking about teacher education, continues talking about the inequalities that are present in America's school. Again, Dr. Linda Darling Hammond is impactful to our work in education, specifically multicultural education. One thing that I would like to share is from the 10 Features of Good Small Schools, where she talks about examples of effective schools, and she mentions that it should have culturally responsive pedagogy, which is one that develops and maintains an environment that embraces the various cultures of the students in the classroom and the larger society. The report states that multiculturalism is also reflected in subtle and explicit practices at a school.